All right, so let me officially kickstart this event. Hello, everyone. My name is Sasha, in charge of events partnerships at Levagon Tokyo. I'm very excited to welcome you all to today's event, how to kickstart your journey career in UX design. And I'm super excited to welcome our today's speaker, Nicole, who is an expert in UX design and who's going to share about her journey, about her daily life as a UX designer, but something a little bit about the UX design. And yeah, she prepared a lot of cool things in her today's presentation. So without ado, giving the microphone to Nicole. Nicole, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sasha. So first of all, I'm going to share my screen. All you wonderful people can see that. And I'm going to hide you guys. Okay, so everything is fine, right?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so thank you everybody for joining here today. As you can see, by the title of this session, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about how to, kickstart a career in UX design. But before, we kind of dive into the session, I want to get to know everybody in the audience a little bit more. So forgive me for this, but yes, Sasha has made some wonderful questions for you guys. Oh gosh, how can I expand this? Give me a second. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and put the polls out. So yeah, so the first question will be, what do you identify yourself as? And there's a couple of options. Give me a second. I'm going to launch the poll. Yeah, so do you see yourself, are you currently a career switcher, a student, some sort of designer, or, none of the above? Ooh, this is interesting. Yeah, I feel like we need some elevator music while the results happen.
Right, yeah, let's just give people a couple of seconds maybe to finish, and when you see that the these numbers stop changing, I think that people finish, and I believe that I think everyone is done. Those who wanted to answer, they did.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, then. Yeah, so I can see I'm going to end the poll, and I think most of you are career switchers or none of the above, something else. So I'm going to end this poll. I'm going to share that with you guys just so you can see also who else is in this room today. Awesome. So the next question is, how familiar are you with UX design? For example, you don't know anything versus are you also an expert? Yeah, that's something I think we're all curious about here. I love Sasha's bob.
Yeah, I have my inside music, elevator music inside.
That's right. Okay, great. So I think everybody is in between we don't know anything to beginners as well. I'm going to share that with you guys is yeah, enjoy that. And our last question is, it's kind of like a fun one. Yeah, which of the following are you most excited about right now? Is it interacting with, different people you haven't met before, to insights, or just overall this event? Okay, then. Yeah, so insights from the session. Great. I'm glad everybody will be paying attention then. Yeah, I'm going to share that again. And yeah, that kind of concludes the polling. That's right. The imaginary elevator music. Yes. Yeah, so that kind of concludes the polling session. I do have just one more question for everybody. This isn't like poll friendly, but I am a big advocate of using the chat to interact with you, with everyone here today. So I guess, what part of the world are you joining us from today? I'm currently, because of online events, I want to see who else is out there. I'm currently based in Tokyo, so hello from Tokyo. Awesome. Saitama. Ooh, from London. Hello. India, Hong Kong. Ooh, South Korea as well. Texas.
When
Waking
is in
up
Texas
early.
right now? I mean, it might be not afternoon or evening, I believe.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
in Texas, Alicia.
Alicia, props to you. Okay, wonderful. So I'm gonna go back and share my screen. Yeah, awesome. So now, we kind of understand who is in the audience here today. So great. I can kind of move on to the agenda. So how this is going to play out, I'll kind of introduce myself so you guys get to know who I am a little bit more. We're going to kind of dive a little bit deep into what is UX design and what exactly do UX designers do. Then we're going to go over some skills that you need to cultivate to kind of break into this industry. And then I guess like for dessert, we can break into UX design via your superpower. So we're going to define exactly what is a superpower. And I'm going to go over 4 steps that everybody can do to get into this industry. And lastly is just, I'm going to wrap things up. We can have a question and answer session. And also maybe if we have time, we can open up the floor for discussion. So yeah, here we go. So I think a lot of people right now are asking like, who am I? Who is this person talking to me right now? So yeah, let me fill you in a little bit. So hi, everybody. My name is Nicole. In my past life, I was working in marketing for an engineering consultancy, but now I am a data-driven senior UX designer working for a French agency here in Tokyo, Japan. And when I'm not designing, I love to indulge in photography, flower arrangements, and trying to empower the design community here in Tokyo. Great. And if anybody has any questions about my background, my journey, you can either save them for later towards the end, or you can pop them in the chat, and I'm sure Sasha will collect them towards the end. Great. So now that you kind of know me a little bit more, we can kind of deep dive a little bit into what exactly is UX design. So yeah, I want to hear, I guess, from the audience, what do you think UX design is? There's no right or wrong answers. There's so many interpretations and definitions out there, but yeah, I'm kind of curious what everybody thinks it is. Let's see, where's the chat?
I saw we had 2 senior or mid to senior UX designers in the audience. I think they should know the answer for sure. The rest are beginners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead, senior UX designers, or even the juniors, just what do you think it is, or what do you know it isn't? Ooh, that's a good one. I'm like thinking, how can I pronounce this? Tejashwini? I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name. It's awesome.
Yeah, so maybe we can read. Let me read from Tejashwini. UX design is all about users. From Terry, who is obviously an expert because we know who is this person. I say UX design is a creative process of integrating the user experience into business goals. And we also have using data to create user-centered design and experiences. It's about coming up with solutions for users' pain, designing people's feelings, problem solving, creating and improving product for the sake of improving usability. What is your stance, Nicole? What do you think about these answers?
Yeah, no, they're great. I feel like they're covering different areas because UX design has gotten so big recently too. So I guess, yeah, thank you everybody for sharing your responses. I'll give you what my 2 cents or how I define UX design. Yeah, and it's just basically how to plan how something looks and works to make, whatever you're making, whatever product it is, it needs to be easy to use and enjoyable for the users. And lastly, it's just a process that involves different things like research, analysis, and lastly, like understanding the different points of interactions. So like props to you guys. I feel like you're very like you're covering everything. And you might be asking, okay, that's great, but what exactly do UX designers do? And they're responsible for the entire experience of a product. Or even in big companies, they started to, segment different experience, different features or different areas of a product to specific UX designers. And their focus is in understanding the users. And lastly, it's just to contribute, solutions to improve the whole experience of that specific product. Yeah. So once again, we can kind of go into the key skills to cultivate. And I kind of divided the section into two parts. The first one we're going to see are the soft skills. And, there's so many soft skills out there. I just chose like the top 5 that kept reoccurring in a lot of job descriptions. And this, number 1 is curiosity. We know UX designers, they need curiosity because they're always solving problems. They're targeting on the why of a lot of these problems. Like we looked at the definition of UX designers as well. Empathy is also quite crucial. They need to understand the specific users that they're targeting as well. Open-mindedness and flexibility. So the whole design thinking process, there's a lot, as designers, you receive and give a lot of feedback. So you need to be open-minded, even though sometimes, I think it's quite natural to get attached to your own ideas. And obviously during iterations, you need to be flexible in trying to come up with solutions to that problem. And lastly, communication and collaboration. UX design is not a solo sport. You need to communicate across different departments, whether it's engineering, marketing, or even management, like PMs or the CEO of a startup. So those are also quite vital to survive in the industry. Great. So now we're going to the hard skills, and this would my number 1 would be, design thinking. And like I mentioned before, design thinking is just it's a method, like a process that basically it's concerned with solving complex problems in a highly user-centric way. And there's different phases within this process. So it kind of involves the different steps underneath here. For example, research is the foundations that a lot of designers have to build to base their design decisions. Information architecture is just, I guess, how to organize, structure information for your specific product. Wireframing and prototyping are, it could be high fidelity, low fidelity, and to test users. Second last is visual communication. So this consists of, for example, like color theory, typography, and the branding of your specific product. And lastly is your special superpower. And we're going to be talking about this coming up soon. So once again, if anybody has any questions about, UX design, UX designers, or, the key skills to cultivate, you can write it down right now or save it for the end of the chat. Okay, so I guess here's like the main focus of what we want to go into today, breaking into UX design via your superpower. And I do have several steps that, somebody can take to break into the UX industry, from having a strategy to, networking with your community. But, due to time constraints, we're just going to be focusing on leveraging your superpower. And a lot of you might be asking, like, Nicole, what is this superpower you're talking about? Where can I get the superpower? And what I mean is your background is your superpower. And when I mean your background, I mean the previous industry that you're going into. So like I mentioned before, I was previously coming in for marketing. So my superpower is marketing. So I'm kind of curious what type of superpowers we have in the audience today. So if you can kind of, drop in the chat, what is your superpower? You can either disclose the position, for example, a nurse, or if you're not comfortable with that, you can also just state the industry, for example, healthcare or, medical industry. So yeah, let's check the chat for that. Sasha, if you can read some out loud.
Well, if I'm not sure if we have people who can talk about their superpowers easily. I think we have a lot of shy people, but yeah, if we have someone who knows
Got it.
what his or her superpower is, please write down in the chat. We have not so few shy people as I thought. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm glad, it's all about sharing. And that's the whole thing. That's why I chose this specific word too. I think a lot of career switchers, they disregard their previous industries, or I think some people even feel ashamed about it. And I'm like, no, this is what's going to push you forward into your next career.
Well, that's exactly the same what we say at the boot camp as well. We say like a mantra to all our boot camp students as well. Your background is your superpower. So yeah, we have questions. Let me read it aloud. Answers. Julie, pre-sales engineer. Jason, real estate as an inside sales agent. I'm currently junior software developer, 1.5 years. Marketing, yeah, so someone also comes from marketing, is you.
Awesome.
Content marketing, architect, pre-sales engineer consulting, marketing and sales, also eating. Nicole, I would like you to maybe stop a little bit on the superpower of eating. Retail sales, graphic design and web design, visual part education, graduate graphic designer, been jumping between different titles for internship, social media marketing, illustrator to graphic designer and graphic design.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you everybody for sharing. I know it's not easy, but yeah, this is a safe space. So I'm really happy that people were able to share that. Great. So now we can kind of move on to the next step, like how to leverage your superpower. And I'm going to explain these steps, and further later on, I'm going to go into them a little bit more in depth, and I'm going to use myself as the example. So step number 1 is just list your background, soft skills and hard skills. So for me, it would be marketing. For you, it's going to be something different. Step number 2, pick the skills that overlap with UX design. So obviously, that's what we're going to try to get into, at least for this session. Step number 3 would be incorporate these skills into UX projects or UX work. And lastly, step number 4 is targeting companies that overlap with your background. So now that I gave you the quick summary, I can go a little bit more in depth, and I'm going to use myself as the example. So I combined step 1 and 2 together in this slide. So marketing and UX design skills, you can see the overlapping soft skills, which is curiosity. I think a lot of marketers need to be curious, especially, curious and creative to kind of meet their targets, to launch those campaign ads, and especially if you're in digital marketing, create content online. Adaptable. I guess, there's a lot of deadlines, there's a lot of goals that we need to achieve. So I think as marketers, we always need to pivot I guess like some process or the strategy along the way. Again, like marketing is not a solo sport either. Communication and collaboration are also quite vital. We interact with sales quite frequently and also with management. And the hard skills are obviously research. So, market, I guess like market research and competitive analysis, they're quite parallel to UX research as well. Data analysis and KPI oriented. I think both in marketing and UX design, they use this quite often to either like measure the success of designs or part of the research phase as well. So to create that foundation to drive, design decisions. And lastly, strategy. So strategy is interesting because I find that it mirrors the define phase in the whole design thinking process, where you know what the problem is, and now you have to kind of figure out a plan to solve, to patch up that problem. Great. So step number 3 is probably the hardest step of all, to be honest. Infuse UX work with your, superpower. So how I did it specifically was, I found some freelance projects, and I emphasized, the research and the strategy portion for these projects. I also used KPIs and data, which is part of the overlapping skills to show the business impact of these new designs. And yeah, I think overall kind of infusing these two worlds together, it just shows the perfect marriage from, I guess, your past and where you want to go into the future. And the last step is, target companies that overlap with your skills. And how I did this was two ways. One, I looked into companies that are making products within the same industry. So as a marketer, we use Google Analytics a lot. So I tried to find competitors of Google Analytics, since, I think every marketer uses those type of kind of data tracking tools. I also looked into, digital marketing. So like social media, planners, or I guess management software as well, to kind of enter into that space. The second way I also looked into was look into positions that match the overlapping soft skills and hard skills. And what I mean by this, oh gosh, like the design space is so big right now that there's room for anybody. When I was starting out, I just thought it was super clear cut, like UX designers, UI designers, or both, UX, UI designers. But now there's so many things out there, like because of this research, I found out there's such thing as a learning experience designer, a specific like design systems designer, also like growth designers. And the one that kind of matched my overlapping skills was actually a growth designer, which is basically just a designer that uses KPIs and data to drive growth through the designs and into the business. So I'm like, oh, that's perfect. And yeah, like I mentioned before as well, there's many options to choose, not only within the design positions, but also in the environments. There's startups, there's agencies, there's large corporations, which is great. You can also even go freelance, or there's so many spaces available. Okay, and you might be asking, like, why does this work? This isn't something revolutionary. I think it's been done quite often, a lot before. And this works because companies that overlap with your background will see value in you. You don't only become a UX designer, but a subject matter expert. For example, I can give an example. One of my friends was a nurse, and she transitioned into a UX designer, and she actually got a job quite quickly because the company that she applied for, it was a healthcare app specifically for hospitals. So they saw her as a UX designer, but also as somebody who has specific insights on how hospitals work, I guess like the different management positions within the hospital, the interactions between doctors and patients, and they needed her. So yeah, this helps you break into the industry a little bit easier. And also it gives you the ability to negotiate a higher salary. So yes, so many wins. Great. So yeah, we're kind of at the end of my session. So I'm going to just wrap things up for you guys. We kind of spoke about what exactly UX design is. And it's just, something that we look to plan how something looks or works. We looked at what exactly UX designers do, and their main focus is on being responsible for the overall experience of a product. We looked at the soft skills like curiosity and adaptability, and the hard skills like research and wireframing or prototyping that we need to cultivate. We looked at into like how to break into UX via your superpower. So we defined what exactly is your superpower, and we looked at the 4 steps on how to do this, and lastly, why it works. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Before we head into a questions and answers session or the discussion, if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just find Nicole Ha, just like my Zoom name right now. But please do send a note. I want to know it's you and not some random person. Also, if you're in Instagram, I also have my Instagram account, which is Heniko with 2 I's. And if you're interested in, I guess, how design looks like in Japan, that's what most of my content is there. Yeah, but yeah, Sasha, I think we can move on to questions if that's okay with you.
Yeah, cool. So thank you so much, Nicole. And I think that we have time for talking about some points that we have discussed with you before. For example, about your career, you kind of devoted only one slide for yourself and how you came to being a UX designer. You mentioned right before that you worked for marketing. How did you transition? What did you do? How did you personally learn UX design? If you could share your personal journey with us, it would be really interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how I transitioned into UX design was actually from a boot camp. I believe it's called Design Lab. I completely recommend it if that's what some of you are looking for. And yeah, I just thought that I guess the boot camp lifestyle matches my learning style. I like having a mentor. I like having a community, and that's what kind of it just came together for me. Also at that time, I was also working a full-time job abroad. So it was nice that the boot camp was remote. Yeah, but I think boot camps are not easy at all, because I think, using the 3 steps, step number 3 was infusing, UX, the overlapping skills into your UX work. And I think that was probably the most hardest part for me, but in the end, it paid off. So I'm really glad for that.
Thank you. So I think that also a lot of people might have question about how does your typical day look like? So we talked a little bit about the cultivating skills, about generally what you do, but what do you actually do? What kind of software do you use? What kind of teams do you work together? And how does your team, for example, look like? That would be really interesting to know too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think right now in Japan, it depends. I know my previous workplace was more traditionally Japanese, like a Japanese agency. So their tools are completely different from the ones I use right now. They were using Adobe XD and the whole Adobe Cloud. But now that I'm working at an international agency, they're, I guess, a little bit more up to date with what's current. So we're using Figma, we're using FigJam. We still use, the Adobe Cloud, but it's just like Photoshop, Illustrator for certain things like logos or icons.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions in the chat for you. Are UX designers expected to do UX research, especially in Japan?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Yes, but also it depends. I think it depends on the type of organization that you're currently in. If you're in a startup, I think most likely you're going to be a generalist and you have to wear a lot of different hats. So yes, you might be the UX designer and also the UX researcher for sure, but definitely in more larger corporations, for example, like Google, they kind of separate those roles. So maybe you don't have to do UX research as much as the previous, as a startup.
And for people maybe who are not very familiar, what is UX research? Could you please explain a little bit what does it include? What does it involve? The UX research.
Yes, absolutely. So like I think I mentioned this before, but again, like the design space is getting so big that they're starting to specialize roles according to the industry. So UX researcher is somebody who just focuses on research. And I think actually the qualifications for that are quite high. For example, I've seen, at least in the US standards, I'm not too sure in Japan, but you need to have a master's or a PhD. You need to know how to do I guess like the proper statistical analysis between different like how to conduct research, like whether it's A/B, whether it's surveys, whether it's interviews. So I think it's very controlled and quite scientific actually. So, but yeah, I mean, if you think research is your thing, you can also definitely target that instead. There's definitely that space for you there.
We also have a comment from one expert here who says that in Japan, they also require you're fluent in Japanese too. Do you agree with that point?
Oh, wow. Again, it depends. Obviously, learning, being able to use Japanese in Japan will open so many doors for you. But also, I think to be a UX researcher uh, in Japan, you definitely do need to have like business to native fluency, just for the nature of analyzing data, conducting interviews with probably Japanese users. So yes.
Thank you. I do remember that when we talked before, you also mentioned such a job title as a UX engineer. What is the difference between the UX designer and the UX engineer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe UX engineers are probably a combination of a UX designer and an engineer. They do focus on the users, but they also have that technical knowledge that engineers have, specifically for front end, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And I've seen different positions that vary in terms of responsibilities. Sometimes they need to create rapid prototyping through, these coding languages, versus other ones are more of just creating the assets and making sure everything is just in order. So I guess there's like a spectrum on your like responsibilities as a UX engineer.
Thank you.
Mhm.
There's a couple of more questions in the chat, but before
Awesome.
we move to them, just a really quick question, or maybe not quick.
Yeah.
Do you need to have design skills to become a UX designer? You need to know how to,
Yeah, can you define what design skills means to you?
yeah. For me, before I got into the tech industry, I saw that you probably need to know how to draw. And for example,
Mhm.
I couldn't do that, of course, but at the same time, I found no problem being a front-end developer.
Yeah, oh, that's an interesting one. I don't think you need design skills. It depends actually. You don't need to know how to draw, but I think you do need to kind of sharpen your, I guess what some people call it like design eye. And I think the only way to practice this is just by, being involved in projects, having a mentor. um yeah, but and it depends the position that you end up going for example, if you're going to be a UX researcher, you're going to be in data and research most of the time, so maybe designing buttons, or more of the visual designer responsibilities, you don't need to worry about that because you're going to be in research. But if you do think like, oh, visual design is something for me, then yes, I think it is better to kind of practice practice and just hone those visual design skills.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move to the questions in the chat. Questions from Terry. Is there a community in Japan focused on UX design?
Yes, there is. Yeah, I believe the one I'm currently in is called Creative Tokyo. I'm sure I can drop the link later on, but yeah, they are an English-speaking online community. They have a website and also a Slack channel, and that's where I think designers from Japan and also maybe from the APAC region as well come, and they just share events, they share resources, they get together, and also yeah, create events together. So there's, if any of you are looking for a design community to join, definitely I would recommend that one.
Thank you. Question next. Which is better when switching career? Design bootcamps, self-learning, or design degree?
Ooh, got it. Honestly, it depends on how you learn and time and like financial, your how your financial status is. For example, if you have let me phrase this. I think, let me break this up a little bit. So I think you would be a good candidate for self-learning if you like to study alone. Also, perhaps maybe if you'd like to save a lot more money, that would be a better route for you. I think if you have a lot of time, maybe having a design degree could fit that as well, just because, I think it depends what you even want. Like a bachelor's degree is 4 years, a master's degree is 2 years, but if you're willing to make that time sacrifice, I say go for it. And lastly, if you're kind of in between the both, something that doesn't cost so much, but something that's fast, I would recommend the boot camp. And I think that's why I chose it too. I like that. I like structure. I like the mentorship, and I like the community. So that's what I went with.
Thank you. Next question. How do you improve communication skill as a UX designer?
Ooh, communication through practice, I'm afraid. And yeah, actually, that's something I resonate. I still think I'm not, but presenting in front of others is not something that comes naturally to me. And I think the only way to overcome this is practicing. You can practice it with your friends, in your workplace, also like in volunteering situations like this one. Yeah, but it's just kind of getting out there and starting. There's actually a very interesting, I think, thing that I found. It's called fear setting, that you kind of, something called like fear setting instead of goal setting. So, when you do goals, you do like, oh, I want to do this, I want to achieve this, and so on. But for fear setting, you put fears you want to overcome. And I think one of them could be, public speaking or facilitation. And how you tackle that is just through constant exposure. And you kind of look at how, you plan out the worst case. And when you realize what the worst case is, it's not that bad.
How did you land your UX job? Like, how many jobs did you apply?
How many jobs did I apply? Ooh. Oh my gosh, that's interesting. Yeah, so I started job hunting in January, I believe. I think I've applied to probably 100 and more jobs. Not only I focused in Japan, but I was also looking at the APAC region and even maybe in the US West Coast as well.
Thank you. So a question from Amanda. As a graphic designer, many times I had to educate my client about my design process. I'd like to hear from you if you have some same situation as a UX designer and how you communicate with your clients about your work process.
Yeah, thanks for that, Amanda. I think, I'm not sure if you're based in Tokyo, but this conversation happens almost every day for me. A lot of traditional, I guess, companies here in Japan still don't know what UX design is. They get mixed up UX design with UI design. Also, in a lot of interviews, when I was job hunting as well, I would see the position UX designer, I would apply, and through the interview process, I started to realize, oh, this isn't UX design, it's UI design. So I think it's still a common thing. And yeah, I guess, I mean, there's no way to overcome this, but just be patient, explain to them what the differences are, and hopefully this will become, I guess, mainstream enough that people in the future won't have to ask what it is again. And
Thank you. Next question.
Sorry.
There is
Give me a second. Yeah, I'm looking at Amanda's. How do I communicate my clients about my work process? Yes, sorry, Amanda, just to go back to your question. Usually what my agency currently does when we're kind of tackling a new client and they have no idea what UX design is we just like we put it in a visual format, what exactly UX is, the different phases and why is it important? Why should they care about this? Because in the end, it's going to benefit them. I think just mentioning that, it will definitely help you out in communicating, especially with clients or stakeholders.
Thank you. Next question. There is a phrase that people say, tutorial hell, when you're just watching UX tutorials and learning things, but not really being able to build anything, especially if you're a self-taught UX designer. I was wondering how you can overcome that, especially coming from a bootcamp background.
Yes, I think the best way to overcome this is by doing. Yeah, so I would definitely try to find maybe some freelance clients to actually practice on. Because it's interesting. I've seen a lot of even in my boot camp, like there's people that read a lot of books about UX. They will, watch so many videos about how to do UX design, but they're not putting it into action. So I think the best way to learn is by doing. And you can do this through by doing some volunteer projects, by seeking out like freelance clients as well. And this in the end adds to your portfolio because you're dealing with real people.
Thank you. How do you work with developers, engineers in your role? What does the process typically look like?
Yeah, it's interesting because in my previous agency was a very small agency, which says 30 people. And the process that I worked with my engineers was very straightforward. I just, used Adobe XD and I transferred these designs to the developers and they just coded it accordingly. But now that I'm working at a bigger, more international agency, they actually use, the client outsources their engineering team. So the engineering team is in India, I'm here in Japan. So how we communicate is basically we have to use this program called Jira, and we issue, I guess, these things called tickets to make design changes. And once a ticket is created, we attach the designs and that gets sent to them and then they can build out that accordingly. And if there's some issue with the design, they will flag the ticket, and that's how we can kind of track, because the scope of work is so much bigger now.
Do you think that someone can pick up a UX design without taking a bootcamp course? If so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many free resources out there like YouTube, also a lot, I think there's a Google Coursera UX course that's, I'm not sure if it's for free, but it's quite affordable. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of resources out there. I'm not a self-study person, so I might not be the best person to kind of give you advice on this, but I do have friends that are self-taught, and it's definitely possible. I think as long as you have, the self-discipline and you put yourself out there, you can definitely do it.
Do you recommend to work as a freelance or at the company? What is your career plan, if you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, gosh, okay. Every role kind of leads to your next role. So definitely when I was starting out, I wanted to learn about Japanese users, I started out as freelance, and that, snowballed into having my first opportunity. And that's what led me kind of here today. But I think, your workplace depends on what you want. I know people who have been in the UX industry and they're freelancers for 5 to 7 years, and they just love that freelance lifestyle. They like being in control of their schedule. They love that they're, not attached to a company, and that's what works for them. For me, I'm obviously not Japanese descent, so I need a working visa. So and that comes with working in a company, but I like that security.
What would make a good impression and makes a person stand out during an interview for a UX designer role? Maybe having your own website or showing some Figma projects.
Yeah, sorry, can you read that again?
What would make a good impression and makes a person stand out during an interview for a UX designer role?
Got it. Yeah, I think just being prepared, being on time, kind of, yeah, being yourself, but also a little, professional. Nobody likes any sloppiness. And I think especially in Japan too, some areas of, I guess, like some industries are more conservative than others, but I think if you cover those, you shouldn't have a problem.
After completing Design Lab Bootcamp, how long did it take you to land the job?
Yeah, so I was in, I believe, like Capstone 3 when when I started job hunting, which was sometime around like last year in November. So I started officially job hunting in December, and I found my job opportunity in March.
Thank you. Do you have a website that you use to find freelance clients or nonprofit project opportunities?
Ooh, do I have any freelance friends? You can definitely, is this based in Tokyo or just in general? If it's in Tokyo, I definitely know that there are sometimes some opportunities in Creative Tokyo that come that they need like volunteers or freelancers to help them out. Also, I think there's this, I'm not sure if it's a company, but it's called Top Total, and they hire a lot of freelancers. I think it's like a freelance platform that you can join. So that's also available there too. But I think, first of all, being a freelancer starts word of mouth. So I think once you land one client, they will start spreading the word to their friends, to their families, and it will slowly kind of build up your network.
How do you improve your skills day to day to get promoted to meet a senior position?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about like the T form, that you to kind of go from mid-level and senior and higher, you need to kind of learn a little bit about everything and then specialize in one thing that you really love. So kind of cover all your areas a little bit so you can kind of get the whole picture, and whatever your passion is, for example, design systems is your thing, then you can specialize into that. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. What was your longest project you've had so far?
Ooh, my longest project has probably been, oh, that's interesting. Probably at my previous agency, we worked on what did we work on? We worked on kind of revamping a website for a symphony in Tokyo, like not a symphony, an orchestra in Tokyo. And originally we did the pitch, they agreed for it, but I think it just took so long because yeah, the stakeholders were in and out of the country, and that was kind of, I guess it's long, not on our side, but because the stakeholders just kept coming in and out of the country.
Thank you. A couple of very technical questions about the UX design.
Okay.
How do you get a UX design idea from users? By observation, maybe? And how do you observe users? Any good method?
Yeah, I think this sounds something like when you're interviewing users. When you interview users, you need to have kind of like an interview script. And this script usually has, your little introduction, thank you for your time, and you have your questions, your interview questions. And these questions need to be open-ended. They shouldn't be like double-barreled. And you should avoid close-ended questions. For example, if I'm doing, let's say like I'm hired by Zara, they want me to fix their website. So the questions I'm asking Zara's users are, tell me a pleasurable experience shopping online, or tell me, I don't know, like an unpleasant experience while shopping in person, to kind of gather these insights from these stories. And once you have these stories, you start picking out behaviors like, oh, they didn't like waiting long lines in person, or oh, returning clothes or something is something that was considered a frustration. So you pick these little insights from these stories that they share. And I think Yes. Yes, you usually do it through observation. I entered this boot camp and, actually most of my whole UX designer career is through the pandemic. So a lot of everything was done through Zoom. So I just like Sasha is doing today, I got their consent to kind of recorded each session, and I kind of went back and picked out like their behaviors, like their posture and everything, but also what they were saying to kind of just confirm what they're what they said is what I wrote down at the moment.
What computer do you recommend for UX design, MacBook or Windows?
Yeah, I mean, I think as anything that gets the job done, although I guess my preference is I've been, an iPhone user for so long, it just makes sense to get the Mac because everything is compatible. So yeah, I'm a Mac user, but to be honest, it doesn't matter as long as you can use it.
This is how it works with
Exactly.
yeah. Any tips on take-home design challenges?
Ooh, take-home design challenges. Yes. Make sure you have make sure you have a defined time limit. You don't want to go over time doing these design challenges, especially because a lot of companies don't pay for them. Second of all, not sure, like I hope, this is like a legitimate I guess take-home design challenge, but I think there are some suspicious companies that they try to make you do design challenges and they take your own ideas for it. So I think a red flag would be if the design challenge is kind of related to the company's product. So yeah, other than that, I think if you do have time, I would try to put it in a maybe PowerPoint slide to kind of present something nicely packaged to whoever your interviewer will be.
Thank you. We have a really nice insight from Terry. Looks like you have mentorship sessions. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? Are you mentor somewhere, somehow?
Yes, I do. Let me go find it then. Yeah, if anybody's interested, I do hold some mentorship sessions, whether it's, design challenges, portfolio reviews, yeah, or just, coffee chats. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, I can also put that in there. Give me a second. Let me go find it. Yeah, do we have any more questions? Any last minutes or, oh yeah, there you go. Top Total only accepts designers with a few years of experience. Yeah, any last questions?
Yeah, I would like to have the link too, because I think it would be useful for some of the Le Wagon students as well, who are looking for an area in UX design. So if you do you review CVs, right, for UX design roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that.
That's very good to know. So I think we have some Le Wagon students in the chat. Please do contact Nicole if you are interested.
Yes, it's just through Superpower. I believe there's a code. Give me a second. No, yes, there's a code that I'm going to send out later on, but yeah, you can contact me through there. You can also connect with me through LinkedIn or Instagram if that's your jam. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. I know there were a lot of questions. I hope I answered most of them.
Yeah, you answered all the questions. So, and it's exactly just 3 minutes to 8. So we just have 3 more minutes. If you have any last questions, please type them in the chat. Otherwise, yeah, it's time for Nicole maybe to, did you send your LinkedIn link?
Give me a second.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yes, I should have just copied and pasted and made it.
Oh, you also have it on your slides, right? You have your contacts on your slides.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm going to stay back. And if anybody wants to have an open discussion or, have any follow-up questions, I'll be here waiting, I guess.
You have a question, very non-related to this topic, but still, how will you celebrate doing this awesome event?
I mean, yeah, just, I mean, I'm sipping my tea already. Maybe I'll go take a nice long bath.
Right. Cool. Yeah, so I think that's all. Yeah, thank you so much, Nicole. It was really cool. Interesting, very insightful, very
Yeah.
engaging. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We had very active audience today. I haven't seen so many questions, so many discussions, feedbacks
I know.
for a
Thank
long
you so
time.
much,
Yeah.
everybody. Yes, please, let's connect. I want to, meet more UX people or non-UX people. I want to help people career change. I know it's definitely scary. It's never too late for anybody, no matter what industry you're in. Yeah.
Right. And I just want to add, as Nicole mentioned, that it's possible to translate to UX design from any industry. You just need to work on your UX design skills. We do have at Levagon several students who went to UX design industry, who are working on the UX designers. And I think one person is in Fukuoka. We have several in Tokyo. They're all very happy about the career choice. So this is something definitely we recommend people to go to. So you don't need to, graduate from like 5 years university to become a UX designer. Nicole, maybe if you have any recommendations for resources that people can check, any readings, maybe any books.
Yes, give me a second, Sasha. Somebody sent me a question. They said, someone who successfully broken into the industry, how's my satisfaction within the industry? I can say, is it forehead? I'm very satisfied. I guess I didn't explain why did I switch out of marketing and went into UX while I was working in marketing, I was doing a lot of business trips abroad. And I think I was just it was great in the beginning, but now that I'm aging, I want to settle down a little bit more, have a remote job. And yeah, that's what kind of sparked my interest towards UX design. And it's perfect. Now I'm working from home remotely. I definitely love the design community and my team members at my current company. They're so supportive, international, and I'm in a really good place right now.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's exactly 8 p.m. right now in Japan. Time to wrap up the event. Thank you so much, Nicole. Again, you're awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and attending this event, and looking forward to seeing you at our upcoming events. Have a great evening for those of you based in Japan in this time zone. Have a great afternoon for those in Europe. And for someone from Texas, I didn't get a reply, but I think also some different time zone from afternoon, maybe morning. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, and see you soon. Bye-bye.